Pranay, if you don't mind, let me start off with a little episode from history. Now, there is a story in the Sikh tradition that the Hindu saint, Samat Ramdas, his name was, he was going on a pilgrimage all over India, and somewhere in Garhwal, in Srinagar in fact, in Garhwal, he encounters the sixth guru of the Sikh tradition, Guru Hargobind. And Guru Hargobind now is the first guru who has, till then it has been a spiritual tradition. He's the first one to have armed himself and moved around like a soldier with a small army around him and dressed in regalia. And Samat Ramdas was keen to meet him, and so when he encounters him, he's just coming back from a hunt, and so he's slightly astonished, and he asks him like, what kind of a saint are you? And so Guru Hargobind says, I am internally a hermit and externally a prince. Now just pause on those words, like lovely words there, and I think those are words that could describe the whole community. In fact, like the Sikh community, very often sometimes stereotyped as being very exuberant, very boisterous, very effervescent, but internally they seem to be kind of somehow touched by something very deep and still. And if you look at those words, actually they are universally applicable to all of us. We are all of this world, and at the same time, inside of us, we are kind of with ourselves sometimes engaged in reflection about what the self means.
The introspection, which is so important.
That's right.
Good afternoon, people, and our issue this week is a tribute. It's of course Guru Nanak's 550th anniversary, as you all know, and we have brought out this special issue, and it's got a whole collection of essays and this and that, and covering a whole lot of themes. The interesting part here is that that this anniversary comes at a time when the contemporary scene is also kind of coalescing around themes around Sikhism in a very strong way. And before we come to the package that we have for you, one of the stories was done by my colleague Pranay Sharma, and this has to do with the Kartarpur corridor and the magnificent Gurudwara that's been built on the other side of the border, and that's happening right now as we speak, and preparations are on from both sides, and there's a little bit of conflict. So Sikhism as a kind of an element that has played into politics, contemporary politics. Of course, historically also there is a great, thematically very rich core of themes there. But right now, what exactly is happening, Pranay?
As I mentioned in my story, that in the subcontinent, religion and politics is not ever too far away from each other. There have been on a number of occasions when they are being, they intermingle, they're being used. At times there have been dramatic effect and impact of that which has gone far beyond the shores of South Asia. And so, this is...
And the South Asian map itself is like now almost entirely writ by, issues that have emerged from.
Absolutely. And this is yet another issue that we focus on, where we are trying to look at, how the issue of Guru Nanak's birth anniversary, this is such a major event. It is already being celebrated for the last year or so in Punjab.
That's right.
In a big way, through a number of events and all that. But on the 12th, that is his birth anniversary, that date.
That's right.
Before that, the corridor has to be opened. Now, the opening of the corridor or the need for a corridor is a very old one.
That's right.
Indian leadership, particularly, leaders.
Because Pakistan, the partition, this thing left a lot of the holy shrines on the other side.
Of them, including Guru Nanak's birthplace.
That's right.
And Kartarpur is his final resting abode. Both of them are in Punjab, along with a number of other holy Sikh shrines. And this demand to have a corridor so that it's easily accessible to people from Punjab and others who wanted to go and pay homage.
And there is a little bit of needle between the two countries about what should actually be a very celebratory occasion.
See, this is that the India-Pakistan relation, they look for opportunities when it becomes, a brinkmanship for everything. where it could have been an area of cooperation and work together.
That's right.
But it always turns into, I'm better than you.
That's right. That's right.
So, and that brings in all these elements. And as it happens, it comes at a time, and while in the celebration of a religious leader who wanted amity among all, who was greatly influenced by Sufism at the time, and wanted that to be the spirit, God is inside you, look for Him there. And which essentially meant that, have good relation, friendly relation, cordial relation with all the
celebration of Him is actually itself turning into a kind of a...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's contrary to that spirit.
Even if we leave Pakistan out, internally within India also, or within Punjab, let's say, the various political strands have always been engaged in a certain slightly conflictual, not slightly, in fact very conflictual this thing. There is the Congress on the one side, there is the Akali, this thing, which leads
This, I
us...
think, can't be ignored, because at the same time, while the religion, we are talking about the religion, but if you look at the political structure, we are in a democracy. And it is, in democracy, everybody encourages people to have different kind of views. So political views, ideology driven at times, will always be there. Where the religion sits with it, whether it becomes a unifier or it is used by different groups, to show their individuality and the divisions.
This strand, that the political strand, allows us to actually cast our eye back at a phase in recent history, in fact, which is not too long ago. One of broadly the issue, we have kept it kind of slightly celebratory and in a very gentle way introspective, but we could not afford to kind of totally avoid very, very troubled phase in our history, which ran, let's say, started peaking around the mid 70s, and late 70s it started getting very bad. By the time it was the 80s, it was one of the blackest moments in our history, and the state was in a kind of limbo, for very bloody limbo at that, for a decade and a half. If you with this thing, you have closely observed those years, and would you like to come in on the 80s? We have a very good story here, where we have gone back to a militant who is now surrendered and who's now trying to lead a normal life, Vasant Singh Zafarwal, back in his village, and from there we have used that as a kind of a prism to observe from a contemporary perspective what happened in the 80s in a kind of a reminiscent way. What do you recall of the 80s?
What had happened is that the Congress leadership of the time, Indira Gandhi and her advisors, they decided to counterbalance the Akali, and they started propping up Bhindranwale, and who became a saint, was given that religious kind of veneer. And
saint being a word we have to use with a lot of ambivalence there.
Absolutely, because what people do, there were some sections, conservative or hardliners who went along with him, but a lot of people followed it, but were very afraid of what was happening, the way things were panning out. So initially, the Congress backed Bhindranwale as a counterpoint, but then
he went rogue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So then it became counterproductive. And finally, as we all know, that in order to throw him out from the Golden Temple complex, that India had to use the army, and which became a big issue with the Sikhs and the believers, because a deep sense of hurt that the holiest shrine
was desecrated, and there was blood strewn all around, and the numbers still are slightly hazy, but they're rather huge, and the edifice itself suffered great damage.
That had a lot of tragic consequences also, which led to the assassination of Indira Gandhi, and then the Sikh riots which followed, about 3,000 odd people.
Yes, 3,000 is a conservative estimate, and
much more.
With very good justification, the community and many others, take objection to the word riots, because this was not even riots in that classic sense of two sides actually coming together and fighting on the streets. It was a massacre. It was just absolutely a massacre, and it numbered in thousands. So despite being a martial breed by historical kind of characterization, they were all singled out on the streets of Delhi, and thousands this thing, and a deep sense of justice not having been delivered lingers very deep, and it festers. That is the occasion in which we find ourselves. There have been some healing moments, perhaps, but very ambiguous, and certainly not a story that's finished yet.
Because everybody argues that Sikhs are such a wonderful community that they have bounced back and come back to the mainstream and all that. It is there, but when a closer introspection shows you that no matter what, that the fact that absolutely the fact that till date there has not been any justice, no person of importance has been held guilty and tried. This is a sense which not only hurts a large number of peace-loving Sikhs, but also breeds or encourages those sections who have been talking about a separatist movement.
That's right.
And as we saw, which took a very violent turn, the Khalistani movement, leading to the loss of lives of a number of people, a number of leaders were killed, and a lot of people were killed. So it reminds people of that bloody days, and I'm sure that all of them would like to, though remember it, but not for it to return.
It's in Sikh memory, actually, this almost harks back to a long tradition of persecution, first under the Mughals, and there were a couple of very big massacres in the 18th century. This allows us to kind of go back to one of the themes that also sort of we can extrapolate from Guru Har Gobind's story, which is this kind of twin strands, the kind of dual nature of Sikhism. That there is a spiritual side of Nanak to begin with, and then starting with Guru Har Gobind and towards the end, and Guru Gobind Singh kind of completely turns it into a martially defined religion without abandoning the Sikh side. So we have an essay here by Professor J.S. Grawal and Karamjit Malhotra, which really ponders over the question of whether.
Also takes it from the fact that even in Guru Nanak's teaching, while he was not against war, he was against a war of unequals.
Unequals, exactly.
So those trends were there, which was.
So the question is whether there is actually at all a dichotomy,
sharpened perhaps in a way. By the time we came to Guru.
That's right. They conclude that there is actually no dichotomy, because it's actually a continuum, because the sense of justice has to be at the center of any living in the world. And we have some other fantastic essays here.
But you have to talk about the panel.
Of course. I'm coming to. I'll just run through the small list of stories here. Kind of an overview by Professor Rajiv Lochan, which is fantastic kind of a span of how the community kind of begins to cohere together and becomes a force in history. And in a geographical space where ever since the Ghazni invasion in the 11th century, there was no native political expression at all for many centuries, till Maharaja Ranjit Singh comes along, or starting with Guru Gobind, and for the next 100 years, 1699, 1799, that's the time, 18th century. And there's a fantastic essay here, because Nanak, coming back to Nanak, again J.S. Grawal with Hindu Banga, we had asked them to think about this whole question of Islam and Sikhism, sometimes very much in conflict, even during the Mughal thing. Later, now we see the community quite often being able to be the only one that can offer, solidarity to Muslim victims of violence on this thing, even worldwide. So, in Nanak's time, Nanak is coming at a time when in India, in those parts of India, there's certainly been 5 centuries or something of Sufi saints, of Islamic thought, and very widely dispersed kind of thematic concerns coming out of that, with the Bhakti tradition happening elsewhere, even in Punjab, Kashmir, Karnataka.
Based on his understanding and reading of Islam.
That's the thing.
And he, in fact, taught the Muslims also what their religion meant.
Nanak being someone who has actually gone to Mecca, had held discourses there, conversed with people. It's a very, very interesting kind of interaction. Beyond that, we have a very fine essay by Simi Malhotra, and the Shabad, the word, because the Sikh thought also at its core slightly recalls the
That's so important.
Vedantic kind of this thing at one end, the Islamic thing that God is formless, timeless, and this and that. Therefore, the only way to encapsulate him is actually not something physical or material, but something that is most inherent to the human this thing. Yeah,
Anyone who has heard the
language, the word.
as you're waking up, or if you've had the chance of going to Amritsar and listening to the Shabad which comes wafting through,
There is an
it's such a soothing effect.
there is an oral musical side to that, and there is a core of meaning coming out of that. What exactly we are talking about here, philosophical core, which it's a very fine piece there, and there's one piece we have from Rima Anand which is on gender. How does that play out? Nanak was famously for equality in terms of gender, but if you look at how it panned out, if you look at the community, probably as much patriarchal as any other community around them in the contemporary world, not just India.
How and why that happened?
How and why that happened, and it does not come out of the verses really, and but the social setup actually, somehow or the other, if you look at the thing, actually even the 10 gurus are all male. And so there is a certain, touch of the one thing that which Pranay wanted me to show you is something absolutely gorgeous and marvelous. I'll just take out the page here. It's a mural that Arijit Sen, the artist and designer, drew on the museum at Anandpur Sahib. And he was part of the design team, and he studied the miniature traditions and sort of magnified them on he says it's a 75 feet by 10 feet height wall, where, I mean, words are not required at all. This is something so huge, which I would suggest you all to actually go to the site and see it. Because the sheer detail present here, whereas there is a very, very traditional kind of a top-down depiction of the Harmandir Sahib, but around it there is contemporary Punjab. There are scooters, there are dhabas, there are people, there are shops, there are all kinds of things. Beautiful. So we have tried to give it as much, and if you cannot go to Anandpur Sahib, the next thing, of course, would be to please pick up the issue, because seeing this online would just not give you the same effect. This it's a fascinating set of sketches done with a big team over 2.5 years, and it's a marvelous tribute to a whole community and a whole religious tradition, and that's probably the note on which we would like to end this. Please do pick up this issue, as we said. Thank you.